Part 82. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 814. When Sugu opened his eyes, it was still dark. He touched the bedside table with his right hand, found the pocket watch and immediately took it over to look at it. First of all, I saw Xiao Zai's smiling face, and the smile remained the same. Then came the time, which was still early. Sugu climbed out of bed and walked to the window, only to find that Xian Xiang had already gotten up for a run. She was more active than everyone else, and it was so rare that she slept in. As he ran past the dormitory building, he seemed to see the side and waved, but he didn't call out Admiral. She had actually shouted it before. However, forget it about girls like Bazai and Royal Oak. They are better at sleeping. The sound of thunder cannot wake them up. Even if they wake up, they will fall asleep easily. But there are still some people who have poor sleep quality and find it difficult to fall asleep when they wake up. After all, not everyone can sleep next to the Admiral, holding his arms, feeling quite at ease, and sleeping how they want. So she was severely punished and never dared to do it again. Looking at the sea in the distance, I stood by the window for a long time, until a cargo ship, a passenger ship, or something else on the sea disappeared from sight. Sugu returned to the bed and sat on the bedside blowing the fan. Since the cafe was equipped with air conditioning, he had temporarily given up on the idea of installing air conditioning in the dormitory. The cooling effect is not good, it is quite bulky, and it is noisy. It is really not worth the gain. Sugu looked at the bed and saw Ruhi wrapped in a thin sheet, revealing his smooth shoulders, white arms, and slender legs tightly together. Regardless of whether it starts from the confirmation of the relationship or the handing over of the ring, it has been several months now. Unlike many people, there is no emotion at all, it is just a wedding ship. She is different. Two people establish a relationship after they have feelings, so it is natural for them to reject each other very soon. They rejected each other very early. He stretched out his hand to push away Ruhi's slightly messy bangs from his forehead. Just as his palm moved to touch that pretty face, one hand quickly grabbed his palm. "What are you doing?" He was still hemming and hawing without being caught, so Sugu said shamelessly, "Touch it." Ziwi sat up and scratched his short hair. The sheet slipped from her body and she quickly grabbed it. Then seeing Sugu's wide eyes, she felt shy and blushed. "What are you looking at, you pervert?" Rare Sugu retracted his hand and smiled. "It's not like I haven't seen it before." Ziwi gave him a very hard kick. Sugu rubbed his waist, thinking that if he kicked it, you would suffer. He wanted to retaliate. He knew that Ruhi was actually shy easily. He asked, "Ruhi, what did you say to Xianghe when you came last night?" Ziwi was a little crazy. "Since I sleep in the same room as my sister Xianghe, if I don't go back to my room to sleep at night, I have to notify her. Otherwise, he would wait until he went back to sleep, or he would look for it everywhere. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed and squirming for a while before saying, 'Sister, I won't go back to my room to sleep at night.' To be honest, I was so embarrassed that I really wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it. If I had known earlier, I would have said, 'I went to sleep with Dei Feng.' But if you think about it, it's easy to get fooled. By then, not only my sister will know, but even Dei Feng, a stupid big foodie, might be able to notice it." However, as her face turned redder and redder, Ruhi suddenly remembered that her sister's smile was a bit forced at that time. She suddenly lost her shyness and asked Sugu, "Admiral, when are you going to marry your sister?" Completely unable to keep up with Ruhi's thoughts and rhythm, Sugu didn't react for a moment, paused, and said, "I gave the ring, but she didn't want it." As a younger sister, how could she not know what her sister was thinking? Ruhi said, "Just give it one more time and be firmer. She will definitely accept it." "I've never seen you betraying your sister like this," Sugu thought to himself. In the past, the Prince of Wales would come up with a retort from time to time. Bismarck also said something about Prince Eugen, but there really was no one as diligent as Ruhi. Where was it sold? Ruhi said. Bismarck found the book hidden in the bookcase and said it was from Bazai. You are the only one who sells it? Selling Bazai is not considered selling. Sugu thought for a while. Pimp. Ruhi explained, I am thinking about my sister's happiness. Sugu said, stop looking for trouble, don't be self-righteous, do you know what your sister wants? Of course I know. Ruhi looked at Sugu coldly, don't you know? Sugu felt a little powerless. Not only Xianghe, but also many people in the guarding mansion knew the feelings. He lowered his head, I know. Abandoning his sense of shame, Ruhi hugged Sugu from behind and rested his chin on his shoulder. His hair was itching, and he breathed like orchid, sisters. Anyway, I promise you here. Then sister, if so, all she needs is a little please, she's not good at refusing. I swear it's definitely not a blank check, unlike Lexington, who said she wanted to call Saratoga, but it was always just words. Of course, Sugu had slandered Lexington in front of Ruhi. He could paint the cake better than anyone else by going back on his words and breaking promises. However, he still said, I have no interest in the sisters. Otherwise, Lexington and Saratoga can't do it, Bismarck and Bazai can't do it, but reputation and counterattack are easy. Ruhi put one hand around Sugu's neck and waved the other hand in front of him, it's different, we Shuane. Shuane is nothing special. Ruhi bared his teeth, and she suddenly laughed loudly, Admiral, didn't you say you were killed 10 times a night? A little girl cannot bear the whipping, as long as she has a sister. Have I ever said, Sugu said, I can only do it once a day or one night at a time. Ruhi tightened Sugu's neck. She didn't mind murdering her husband. She said, please, how about a little shame? You really don't know how to be ashamed. You are just bragging. Let me think about it. Why in the sky, it's so dark because there are so many cows flying. Why are there so many cows flying? It's because someone is blowing on the ground. Actually, I also want to get married, but it's not the time. I really feel that Ruhi is very cute. Although she is not a good wife, she is really an excellent girlfriend. Sugu said, don't hold me anymore, it's very hot. I don't dislike you, but you still dislike me. Ruhi let go of Sugu, raised his hand and slapped him on the shoulder. With a hiss, Sugu said, don't dare to dislike it, let's continue. Don't you dare? Do you mean you really want to? Ruhi said, I really hit someone, I'll blow you away. Sugu bent over and said, don't imitate Aili's words. I'll blow you up. Ruhi snorted, what a coward. In fact, you really want it? Whether it's my sister, Richelieu, Washington, Euxian, Princeton, Eagle Falcon, Raider, Ethiopian Max, Kaga, Big Mackerel, Archerfish, Changchun, Fletcher, Blucher, Kale Yacht, CV-16, Leipzig, Glory, Scharnhorst. Sugu listened carefully and said, there seem to be many strange names mixed in. Ruhi pretended not to know, is there any? That's the Big Mackerel, Sugu confirmed. Ziwi, he said, then what? What's next? Sugu said, it's over, that's it? You are hopeless. Sugu laughed to himself, he was just joking. Ruhi climbed out of bed, picked up the pillow on the bed, raised it high and threw it at Sugu, okay, get up, help me get my clothes. The morning passed normally. At noon, Sugu and Lexington discussed the recent problems in the garrison. There is nothing wrong with the resource warehouse. No matter how bold you are, no one dares to tamper with it. Everyone still knows how to use it. Steel and aluminum materials will not become moldy or smelly. There have been a lot of rats in the food warehouse recently, and I really don't know where they came from. Bismarck's Oscar is working overtime and hard. After all, the garrison is its territory and must not be provoked. In order to speed up the progress, I want to provide it with help. Ignoring Hood's ginger and fish cakes, they are too inferior to be of much use. A dog is nosy when it comes to mice. Although they are not dogs, U81's 3 little wolves can give it a try. The ferocious big tiger in Kent can be renamed Kyokiu, so as not to embarrass other people. The issue of building a large bathhouse has been brought up and put on hold for a long time. If you want to build it, you can ask Zeppelin, or the company can ask the professional engineering team affiliated to the Ship Girl headquarters to help. They are very familiar with the business. After all, many garrison buildings have been built. Otherwise, you can just do it yourself. It is best to build your beloved garrison bit by yourself. Anyway, many people are just idle when they are idle, or even in a state of panic. No matter how slow or grinding it is, it can be completed by winter. Bizai, don't hold me down. Oh, you just got up. It's already 3 o'clock. I took a nap relatively late and slept until my head felt dizzy. After finally getting up, Sugu came to the office and saw someone. That was the Houston, Helena's former colleague and a subordinate of the Enterprise. Your shipmates are already at work, and you just woke up now. There is a reason. Why are you here? Does the company have another mission? I just happened to have something to do in Chuangziu, so I stopped by. Didn't you ask the company to collect information about stray ship girls before, but now you do? Sugu remembered that he once gave the company a list of the ship girls who had not returned from the garrison until now. He hoped to pay special attention to it. In the past, intelligence came from time to time, but as the number of people in the town guard increased, too many people were proven wrong. The information is getting less and less, and it has been a few months since the last time. Who? Kirov light cruiser. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 815. Seriously, let's go back tomorrow. Sugu looked at Houston, who had unfolded his ship suit and was standing on the sea, and politely asked him to stay. Houston straightened her medium-length blonde hair that was blown by the sea breeze, and she waved her hand. No. Don't be so vigilant, I won't pay attention to you. Sugu said this. He thought that many ship girls would hear the Admiral's invitation, our garrison is great, come and have fun for 2 days. Or to persuade you to stay, since you are here, stay for 2 days, otherwise it is not the way to treat guests. Immediately alert. From the Admiral's point of view, this is a complete misunderstanding, and everyone has absolutely no bad intentions. Houston smiled and said, suddenly I feel a little sad. I am a ship girl, and you, an admiral, have no idea about me at all. A girl's charm can be measured by the quantity, quality, and perseverance of the men who pursue her. The charm of a ship girl can naturally be measured by the quantity, quality, and perseverance of the admirals who pursue her. Then come on, join our town hall, join our big family, so that I can have 2 Houstons. Sugu remembered that his Houston family had gone somewhere and had not returned to the town hall yet. As the older sister, Northampton is not with her younger sister, Houston, who takes care of her more. Instead, she is with Bumblebee. I have to say that they are really a good pair of friends. So there is no sincerity, let's forget it. And what if your Houston family comes back in the future and calls me a fake? Houston still knows a little bit. After all, she was also asked by Sugu to pay more attention to the information about the wandering ship girl. Are you really not giving me any chance? Sugu said, I still want to entertain you well. From now on, the ship girl headquarters will have to rely on you to take care of our garrison. I also expect you to put in a nice word for me in front of our eldest sister, and ask you to have a drink when I get promoted. Sugu said with a straight face, if you want me to give you a nice word, then stay. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. I guarantee that you will receive the dismissal notice tomorrow and be laid off. If I get laid off, Houston waved his knife, don't let me know what you're up to, or else a white knife will go in and a red knife will come out. Do you know how many peerless masters there are around me? I know, you are powerful. Houston naturally knew how powerful the admiral in front of him had a garrison. Even if he was the most powerful ship girl branch in the nearby waters, he still couldn't compare with it in terms of combat power. She looked at her watch and saw that it was getting late. I really won't say anything anymore. I have to leave. I'll try to get back before dark. Having said that, Sugu no longer tried to persuade her to stay. Goodbye then. As a colleague and friend of Houston, Helena of course said goodbye to Houston with Sugu, goodbye. Goodbye. After seeing off Houston, Sugu and Helena returned to the office. He stood in front of the huge map hanging on the wall. This map was specially obtained by asking the company to obtain it. It marked the garrison forts, ship girl branches, routes, deep-sea flagship spheres of influence, etc. around the world. He found the city where Houston said Kirov was and said to himself, Kirov. Not sure if it's Kirov yet. Lexington walked to Sugu's side. Houston had already said that the company only occasionally learned about Kirov from other people, and then asked her to come over to convey it. It was not sure that Kirov was the ship girl of the garrison. Sugu had often encountered situations like this in the past. After learning some information, he made a hard trip and found out that it was not the ship girl from his garrison at all. No matter how hard he tries to convince himself, it's definitely not the case, and how could it be that easy? But it's not what it should be, which is really discouraging. Saratoga has said many times that it is all wrong information, and it is better to have it than not, and it is quite a bit of a show of friendship. But she actually knew that the other party was kind-hearted, and she was very grateful for it. It's not that I really hate him, I'm just complaining. Sugu always thought that it was good for others to help provide information, but it was too much to expect others to help investigate and make it clear without any flaws. He was thinking about what kind of transportation would be better to take from the governor's mansion, and silently calculated how long it would take. Sugu said, "It doesn't matter. It's very close anyway, and it won't take much time to go back and forth. No matter what information you get, you still need to ask multiple parties to find out what the situation is. It has happened before that I learned who and where was from the mouth of an admiral, who might be the ship girl of the garrison. Then Zeppelin happened to know that she pointed out that the ship girl had already left there and joined the garrison, and the information was out of date. However, if the destination is relatively close, and it takes a day or two to go back and forth, I won't be too lazy to go and find out more about it. It's faster to just go there than anything else." Saratoga saw the top of the map. As Soviet ships, they are not in Siberia. Does the old Mazy ship have to be in Siberia? You are not in Gishin, nor have you gone to St. Slovakia or Gaska. What's the point of that place in Siberia, with its frozen wasteland and ice and snow? You hunt seals every day. Sugu took a look at Darkin. If it was still the old world, it should be called Vladivostok. It was still possible there, but it wasn't. As he looked at it, he suddenly thought of the route map for the Mongolian Navy's surprise attack on Beijing, and how the supply agent Suk Bader had to be rubbed in the face by him every day, and he laughed. Saratoga suddenly asked out of curiosity, "Brother-in-law, you used to say that the Soviet Union is the one who joins the garrison as long as he beats her in drinking. Which ship girl branch is she in?" Sugu replied, "It seems to be Sancheo Port, I can't remember clearly." "Aren't they together?" "Why are we together?" Sugu thought to himself. When he got the news about the Soviet Union, he curiously asked others. There was no Kirov in that ship girl branch, so he never went to see it. Saratoga thought about it. The Soviet Union had nothing to do with Kirov. She added, "The Tashkent and the others should be with Kirov." Probably Sugu thought to himself, it's not like Tashkent has a sister named Xiao Liden. A little lowly shouldn't be able to run around. But Guogan is also a little lowly, and she is alone. Even though she became Changchun in the end, I don't know. Saratoga snickered, I remember Tashkent gave you love chocolates. Have it? Yes, Saratoga said firmly, warm tides in winter. It seems so, Sugu responded. The costume change in Tashkent seems to be real. But I remember clearly that I have never trained her at all, and I definitely have no good impression of her. Saratoga nodded, she is still a child, don't make mistakes. Sugu was dissatisfied, if you put it like that. Sullivan also gave me love chocolates, Sigsby also gave me gifts, and I didn't do anything to them. Hee. Sugu admitted that there were so many little Lolita in the guardhouse, and none of them had not been hugged. But that's it, I've never done anything too extreme. Helena suddenly laughed, if it is really Kirov from our garrison, Admiral, you should think more, as soon as he joined the garrison, you would steal his equipment. You have the nerve to say, isn't the Kirov cannon on your body? Sugu looked at Helena. In the early stage of the game, there are no heavy cruisers or light cruisers at all. Big ships and huge cannons are more powerful than anything else. If you have to use someone, Helena is definitely the first choice. It can anti-submarine and track enemies. It seems that it can do everything, especially after the transformation, the skills of tracking enemies have been improved. There is also a map that requires searching for enemies. Without Helena, it can only be done slowly. The Kirov gun has a long range and can give light cruisers and heavy cruisers 2 rounds of bombardment attacks according to the game mechanism. Of course, after the Kirovs were built and the Kirov cannons were dismantled, there was no other choice but Helena. Of course, many Kirovs were built and many Kirov cannons were obtained in the future, but they were all dismantled. That is to say, there is no way to talk about it. Did I steal the co-authorship from her? Helena said scornfully. Since she got the ring and had the most intimate relationship, she jumped even more. At worst, it's like Bumblebee. Give her the Kirov cannon. Sugu suddenly thought of Bumblebee. When she returned to the town hall, she gave herself a set of combination punches. Kirov shouldn't be able to do such a thing. Saratoga suddenly asked, who is more miserable, Kirov or Bumblebee? Sugu thought to himself that for most players, the meaning of two people's existence is equipment. Helena thought for a while and said, the Hornet only has one B-25. In addition to the Kirov cannon, the Kirov also has carrier-based aircraft. Bumblebee has Northampton, Saratoga said. As an aircraft carrier, the Hornet must have had dreams, but there was a gap. Bumblebees have big butts. When it comes to Kirov, it means Kirov cannon. As a person, you don't have the equipment to have a sense of existence. After a stalemate, the two men were really evenly matched. Sugu said, what are you arguing about? Can you have some conscience? Helena sighed, Admiral, please don't speak. Sugu defended, I am also considering the garrison and concentrating my efforts to do big things. A flick of 5 fingers is not as good as a gesture with a curled hand, a progress of 10,000 people is not as good as 100 people. I understand that you took away the Kirov cannon and the B-25, and they must also understand, but Helena smiled brightly, obviously the garrison still has a lot of equipment, like a triple 8-inch cannons, twin 203mm cannon, TBF Avenger, BTD-1 destroyer. Have you ever thought about giving it to them? Sugu coughed and changed the subject, the nights are long and the dreams are many, when do you think it would be better for me to set off to find Kirov? It will be all right. Then let's do it tomorrow, Sugu said, there's nothing going on at the guardhouse. Lexington said, who are you going to take out? It's not far. I can't go there for 2 days. Any one of them will do. Sugu still prefers reputation and counterattack. The two maids can take care of people and are capable in every sense of the word. Then I'll go. Saratoga raised her hand. I'll go. Lexington said, Gaga, don't make trouble. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 816. This is a street in the city center. The sunshine was a bit frightening, and heat waves could be clearly seen in the air. The purple-haired girl, also a member of the heavy cruiser USS Tuscaloosa, wore cool clothes and walked through the concrete square that had been baked by the scorching sun all morning, arriving in front of a store. She turned her head and saw that the girl next to her was well dressed and looked a bit rustic. It couldn't be said that, after all, there was no red and green. It could only be said that she was dressed simply, with blonde hair tied in braids. Kirov, what drink do you want? I don't want it, Kirov replied. I had just been transferred to this Kanyang branch from the north, and it hadn't been long. I couldn't refuse the invitation from my colleagues, so we had to come out together. Then Coke Tuscaloosa chuckled. Men have two major hobbies, one is to persuade prostitutes to become prostitutes, and the other is to persuade prostitutes to be good. Now she is doing the same thing, using decadent and evil capitalism to corrupt pure socialist Soviet girls. Of course, there is absolutely no malicious intent. For example, some people like to deliberately lead ignorant girls to enjoy the extravagance and feasting, causing people to get lost and degenerate. Of course I have a lot of good intentions, but the main thing is that I just think it's fun. Coke, however, Kirov shook his head and said, I can't get used to drinking those sour drinks that are full of sugar. You should drink less. Drinking too much is bad for your body. It's best to quit. Otherwise it's easy to gain weight. Kirov is not used to drinking Coke. On the one hand, the reason is naturally what she said. On the one hand, it can be said from a historical perspective. After all, Coca-Cola symbolically expresses capitalist ideology. How could the socialist Soviet Union, in fact, the Soviet Union also had Coke, but it was just Pepsi-Cola. Therefore, Coca-Cola is a lackey of imperialism, and Pepsi-Cola is a drink of socialism. How can Tuscaloosa give up so easily? She invited Kirov with a purpose. We are ship girls, we are not worried about health, we are not afraid of getting fat, and there will definitely be no problems with our teeth. Let me tell you, Coke is the best. It's great, especially iced Coke. It's best to drink in this weather. Drink it all in one gulp, and then take a break. Are you looking down on me? Kirov was a little embarrassed, but he couldn't refuse too much. Rather than Coke, I want to drink vodka. Vodka, although Tuscaloosa doesn't like drinking, he still knows a little bit about it. Wine. Kirov nodded. This is the drink, yes. Tuscaloosa looked at Kirov, blinked, and was a little confused for a moment. After walking through the Palace of Culture, Tuscaloosa finally came to her senses. She looked around. Let me tell you first, today I will be the host, today I will treat the guests, and all expenses will be borne by me. Don't worry about money. As a ship girl, the salary for working in the ship girl branch is not low. Although you can't live a life of spending money, you don't need to worry about a prosperous life, and you don't need to be so fussy. As long as it's not a luxury item, you can feel free to buy whatever you like while walking down the street. If you are in the combat group, since your life is in danger at any time, the salary level will be higher. It is not too difficult to buy a house after working for a year. Tuscaloosa saw a hair salon. She held Kirov's hand and said, Don't you think your hairstyle is very tacky? Kirov touched the braid, but she didn't think so. But even though others said so, she still wasn't so self-righteous. Go get your hair done, Tuscaloosa said. Longer straight hair, or a wavy perm? No. Tuscaloosa asked, has Kirov had his hair done before? No, Kirov answered honestly. She really didn't. No matter what you do, there has to be a first time. Tuscaloosa decided to be tougher and give it a try. Kirov refused, and when she came out of the hairdresser not long after, she had long wavy golden hair. Tuscaloosa clapped his hands and praised, "This is much prettier. Look at the men on the roadside, they are looking at you. Look at the bald, Mediterranean guy opposite with the briefcase under his arm. Haha, he almost hit a telephone pole." Kirov brushed the hair falling on her shoulders. She was still a little uncomfortable. "But I have to admit, it is definitely much prettier than before." "Not enough, not enough." Tuscaloosa looked at Kirov and suddenly said to himself. She glanced at the small street vendor on the roadside. She went to buy 2 pairs of sunglasses, one for Kirov. "Put this on." Kirov couldn't resist and put on his sunglasses again. She was actually not used to sunglasses and wanted to take them off, but was a little reluctant to part with them, as they seemed to be a very fashionable thing. She saw Tuscaloosa also put on sunglasses, but finally did not take them off. "I just thought to myself, these things are so powerful, there is absolutely no way I can refuse them." Tuscaloosa saw Kirov and she snickered. "Right, there is no girl who doesn't like to look beautiful and doesn't want to dress up. Most of the time, she just doesn't dare to take the first step, for fear of being laughed at. Hum, as an American, there is something that must be done, and this is it. We are the devil, uh-oh, uh-huh, ha ha ha. So it's just a gradual cycle." Walking to the big mall, Tuscaloosa said, "Clothes? Kirov, now let's go buy clothes." Instead of choosing over, in the store, I walked past the clothes racks one by one. Tuscaloosa picked up a lot of clothes and hugged them. Kirov saw it and asked curiously, "Why did you take so many clothes?" "This is for you," Tuscaloosa said. "Try them on one by one and buy the one that looks good." Kirov didn't want to, so Tuscaloosa pushed her into the fitting room. He suddenly remembered something and trotted to the door of the store to get something before running back, and here, remember to put on high heels. Pair a dolman sleeve shirt with jeans. Wear a bat-sleeved shirt with a narrow skirt and a wide-brimmed hat. Pair a one-shoulder t-shirt with jeans to reveal your smooth shoulders. Cute blue Lolita dress. The tank top is paired with hot pants, exposing her navel and long legs. It's too revealing." Kirov stood in front of the floor-length mirror, looking at his clothes, a little hesitant. Tuscaloosa retorted, "We're exposed." In fact, Kirov is not a shy girl. Her problem lies in her thoughts. All her thighs are exposed. It's just thighs. Don't be too old-fashioned in your ideas. Let me tell you, in today's world, even if a man sees all your body, you don't need to marry him." Tuscaloosa wore hot pants and put on her slender pair of thighs exposed. She is the kind of person who puts on a cowboy hat, a piece of clothing like a one-piece swimsuit, and a jacket on top and then dares to walk outside without caring about the eyes of outsiders. Kirov still refused. "Change. Isn't it beautiful?" "I don't think it looks good," Kirov said bluntly. Tuscaloosa was helpless. She thought it was good. "Okay, let's change it." Walking out of the store, Kirov was carrying many paper bags, all of which were clothes bought for her by Tuscaloosa, and she bought almost the same clothes. In fact, she wanted to pay by herself. She was naturally not short of money, but she was a step too slow. In short, she was wearing a white sleeveless shirt with ruffles, a pair of white jeans, and stroppy high-heeled sandals. Of course, it cannot be compared with those battleships with explosive figures. Her figure is still quite tall and well proportioned. Walking down the street dressed like this, I don't know how many eyes I attracted along the way. Tuscaloosa put his hands behind his back and nodded thoughtfully. "Kirov is indeed very beautiful." Why does he usually dress up so old-fashioned? It doesn't matter, as long as he walks more, he will get used to it, high heels and so on. A woman child, if you can't even wear high heels, it would be too bad and disqualified. Kirov held onto the handrail beside the patio on the second floor of the shopping mall, thinking that it couldn't be that easy. Trying on clothes still takes time, and it's already noon. Tuscaloosa stretched out his index finger and tapped his red and delicious lips. What's for lunch? Go back, Kirov said. When staying in the Kanyang branch, the canteen is almost free and has all kinds of food. There is nothing good about free stuff, in fact, it is quite good. Of course, it is just an average level. It is still a little worse than paying for a big meal out. Tuscaloosa looked around, trying to find a high-end restaurant, preferably a Western restaurant. She subconsciously asked, what does Kirov like to eat? The potatoes are ready. Let's have steak. Let's go have steak, red wine, and black pepper steak, Tuscaloosa said. Has Kirov ever eaten steak? Have eaten, Kirov nodded. Tuscaloosa was shocked. You actually ate it? Kirov replied, stay in the ministry, there is usually a cafeteria. Tuscaloosa said, baked snails, foie gras, and caviar are definitely not available in the cafeteria. Has Kirov ever tasted them? No. Okay, let's go eat like this. Tuscaloosa snapped his fingers. After eating, we will continue shopping, to the underground shopping mall, and to the trade building. Does Kirov have any cosmetics? A girl, at least there is a lipstick, this is the most basic requirement. There is also perfume, this is indispensable. Anyway, there is nothing to do, no need to attack, we will not go back in the afternoon, we will play billiards, watch movies, dance, and play roller skating. We go to the bar at night, whiskey, tequila, champagne, brandy. Kirov only heard the last part, quite persistently, vodka. Tuscaloosa raised his hand, Kirov, I will take you to experience life. Let me tell you, your previous life has been wasted. Why are you so nice to me? Kirov suddenly asked. I want to make friends with Kirov naturally, one of the reasons was silent. Tuscaloosa said, yeah. And I'm a heavy cruiser. I want to ask Kirov to borrow Kirov cannons in the future. Well, as long as I have the Kirov cannon, I can fight like those battleships and battle cruisers, and I can bombard them from a long distance. Kirov hesitated to speak, but finally spoke, my triple 180mm cannon is gone. Tuscaloosa said, lent to anyone? No. Kirov's voice was a little disappointed. Tuscaloosa was very curious, it can't be sold. It is common for everyone to borrow equipment from each other for missions. And the Kirov gun is quite rare, and it is an artifact like a weapon for heavy cruisers and light cruisers. As a ship girl, her desire for equipment is boundless, just like an admiral has for a ship girl. Unless she already has better equipment and has eliminated the old equipment, a ship girl will not sell her equipment easily. Ship girls often have the ability to see into people's hearts and can easily detect the malice in people's hearts. Even if someone is lucky enough to deceive the ship girl, once he is discovered, he will wait for the punishment of the gendarmerie. Generally speaking, a ship girl will never go to the end of her rope and sell her equipment. It's not sold, Kirov said. Does Tuscaloosa know that I actually have an admiral? Still getting wind of it, Tuscaloosa replied, no, a little. Took it away, the admiral took it away and gave it to someone else. Kirov lowered his head and bit his lip. She still remembered what she said when she first joined the garrison, I am the light cruiser Kirov. We have no way out. Please allow me to sacrifice myself for the motherland. However, as a ship girl now, she no longer has a motherland, so she should devote herself to the garrison, whether it is exercises, sorties, expeditions, or whatever. Satisfactorily waiting for the admiral's review and assignments. How could I think of a loving father, No, the admiral is still very young. The first thing he did was to dismantle his equipment and give it to Helena. For the sake of the overall situation, Helena is much stronger than herself and concentrates excellent equipment on one person. This is understandable and I am not angry at all. But the equipment was given, at least there was a word of comfort. Why didn't he just dismantle his equipment and forget about himself in the garrison? The Kirov cannon is great, it would be great to have another Kirov cannon, one for Wichita, one for Prince Eugen, and one for Quincy. Helena is invincible. This map and the sea cannot survive without you. Huddled in a dark dormitory, huddled in a dark corner. I heard from everyone that Helena attacked again and achieved many results. Helena held her own Kirov cannon, otherwise it would definitely not be that powerful. She had a share of the credit. The Kirov cannon is very powerful. I own the Kirov cannon and I am also very powerful. Why do tears fall? Why don't they stop no matter how much you wipe them away? Don't cry, you should be happy. If that's the case, forget it. I believe that the admiral will think of him one day. There is a man wearing a military coat, waiting to make achievements and sacrifice his life for the garrison. Unexpectedly, the admiral disappeared in the end and there would be no chance again. I really can't stand it. Why do you still miss the admiral who is such a bastard? Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 817. The steward pushing the trolley walked through the smelly aisle of the train carriage, and the shouts gradually disappeared. Even so, the train car did not fall silent. The adults were talking loudly, and some naughty children were running around shouting, "Take a stick from my old grandson, da-da-da, cover, cover quickly," and they didn't know what kind of games they were playing. Just like a child, Xiaozai lay obediently and quietly by the window and looked at the scenery along the way, including the vast rice fields and rolling green hills. She was well educated by Sugu, to be polite, not to cause trouble to others, and to cause as little trouble to others as possible. Perhaps because of her disdain, some naughty children came to talk to her, but she was not willing to talk to them at all, let alone play with them. If it were replaced by fantasy and law fight, maybe something would happen. It felt a bit noisy. Sugu looked at Bismarck, who was sitting opposite him, with two tufts of cat-like hair on his head that could not be held in place no matter what. He was dressed in black and complained, "I should have just gone on a yacht." After learning about Kirov's information from Houston, Sugu simply packed his luggage and set off the next day. There was no Saratoga accompanying him. Although the girl is very active, she never misses any opportunity to be with her brother-in-law, but she is ruthlessly rejected by her own sister Lexington. And Lexington, as a secretary ship, can easily be separated from the garrison. In fact, there are so many people in the garrison now. Regardless of their reputation or Washington's outstanding abilities, anyone can easily take up the responsibility of the secretaryship. The main problem she has to face is that she usually takes up too much of the admiral's time. It would be too much to eat alone if the admiral is still with you when he goes out. Helena was close to the water, so she naturally didn't want to miss the opportunity to go out with the admiral. But think about it, holding the Kirov cannon, wearing a ring on the finger, and then holding the admiral's arm to meet the Kirov, is it too much? In fact, the main thing was that Sugu remembered that he had promised Xiaozai when he returned to the governor's mansion last time he went out, and he would definitely call her next time he went out. So that afternoon Sugu found Xiaozai by the beach. "Xiaozai, the admiral is going out tomorrow, do you want to go?" "Yes," Xiaozai replied so crisply, "I want to go." If he were to attend a gathering between admirals, Sugu really wanted to take Rodney with him. No matter if you were a big gun gang member or a Lolita fan, no one would be able to escape punishment. But this time I was looking for someone, so I couldn't show off to anyone. He looked around again. Kong Xiang ran wildly by the beach. Lafite held a small shovel, Kong Xiang, Lafite, do you want to take them with you? No, Xiaozai replied simply. It seemed that the three bullies in their townhouse were just superficial sisters, Sister Miao. That's it, there is another Bismarck, she has taken advantage of Xiaozai. In fact, if you think about it, she is quite useful and indispensable. The difference between the portrait and the real person was still too big, and Sugu couldn't recognize Kirov at all. Xiaozai is also an unreliable guy, and San Juan couldn't even recognize him at first. Kirov is just about the same as San Juan, and has no sense of existence. Although Kirov could be asked to proactively identify people, that would be too passive. Sitting on one side of the aisle, Bismarck replied to Sugu, "You must take the car yourself." Sugu glanced at the small house and thought to himself that the city where Kirov was located was not far from the Tutlari residence, so it would not be too difficult to drive a yacht there, although it would still take some time. But it's rare to go out with Xiaozai. If we don't hold hands and walk on the street together, or take the train together, it would be too boring to spend all the time on the yacht. Besides, Xiaozai was not happy and spent half the day bored in the yacht. Finally decided to drive the yacht to Fujiang City, and then take the car north. It's definitely not possible to have a good night's sleep and then wake up and reach your destination. Sugu leaned on the back of the chair and said, "Bismarck, we agreed, if it turns out it's Kirov and she wants to beat me, you have to be responsible for protecting me." Bismarck naturally knew what Sugu had done, but she did not believe that Kirov would hit someone. Although I am not familiar with it, Kirov's character is not that violent. In all likelihood, it is someone who is adding drama to himself. She crossed her arms and said angrily, "You deserve to be beaten if you do something so extreme. You will suffer it yourself. It's all the world's fault, it's all the game operating company's fault, it's none of my business." Thinking like this, Sugu said, "I know it's sarcastic. I'm not hitting you, it's hitting you, it hurts my heart. Hey, 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 I'm your dearest and favorite husband. As my dearest and favorite wife, can you be a little self-conscious?" Shameless Bismarck couldn't stand these words, and the handsome cat suddenly turned into a soft cat. In fact, it was very difficult for Sugu to say such disgusting words, but teasing Bismarck was really fun. "Forget it if you don't help me." Sugu stood up, picked up Xiaozai, who was sitting next to Bismarck, and put him on his lap. "Xiaozai, please help me." What did the admiral say? She was usually at the guardhouse or going to Sichuan show. It was a rare trip. Xiaozai kept looking out the window. She didn't pay attention to the conversation between Sugu and Bismarck. If someone bullies the admiral, Xiaozai will definitely help the admiral. Consultant Su. The admiral is an adult, and Xiaozai is still a child. Could it be that someone bullied Xiaozai, and then the admiral helped Xiaozai? Xiaozai winked mischievously. When Sugu was ashamed and didn't know what to say, she said, "Of course Xiaozai will protect the admiral. Leave everything to Xiaozai. If anyone wants to bully the admiral, just step over Xiaozai's body." When Bismarck felt that he had lost, Sugu hugged Xiaozai tightly and asked funnily, "I like Xiaozai. Where did you learn this?" "You," Xiaozai said, "didn't you tell me before? I also heard you say it to Sister Helena, Sister Gaga, Sister Counterattack, Sister Kent, and it seems you even said it to Sister Miao." Bismarck's face was expressionless, and Sugukian laughed twice, feeling a little embarrassed. There is no way to say it to everyone over and over again. After all, he is not a great writer. The train entered the tunnel at this time, and the carriage suddenly became dark. Snap! After more than 10 seconds, the light returned again, and Xiaozai covered his face. "Admiral, don't kiss me, there's a lot of saliva." "No way," Sugu denied it. He said, "It should be Bismarck. You ask your sister Miao, that's too much." Bismarck couldn't help but said, "Admiral, please pay attention to your image. There was no way, Xiao Zai was so delicious. Sugu rubbed Xiao Zai's cheek, and then asked, speaking of which, Bismarck, what would you do if someone touched you in the situation just now? I will grab his hand and break his hand. Bismarck was confident that he would grab the hands of anyone who dared to harass him. Although he knew that Bismarck would never do anything to him, Sugu thought to himself that it was lucky that he did not touch Bismarck's face. It was already afternoon when we arrived at the city where Kirov was located. After walking out of the train station, I found a fast food restaurant to finish my lunch, and prepared to find a taxi to go to the local Kanyang branch. On the side of the street, Sugu saw a little girl sitting under a shady eaves holding a book. Xiaozai, do you think that person looks like you? Xiaozai licked the wave candy, looked away from a cute chow chow lying under the banyan tree, and followed Sugu's line of sight. She shook her head decisively. It doesn't look like it, it doesn't look like it at all. The house is still young and I don't have many ideas. If Beizai were here, her divergent thinking must have already been thinking like this. Not to mention that the two people have different hairstyles, different hair colors, and different clothes. Even if you look at their faces, the facial features of the two people are different. One is barely cute, and the other is so cute that it could start a war. If you can't tell the difference like this, the admiral must be prosopagnostic. Normally in the guard's mansion, everyone changes their clothes every day, and their hairstyles change from time to time. Many people have similar heights and builds, so how does he usually tell everyone apart? That's right, if you don't look at the face, you must know someone by their chest. It is clear at a glance who is Hood, who is Glory, who is Richelieu and who is the Prince of Wales. I didn't mean that you look similar to her, Sugu said. Don't you remember Xiaozai? There were only two of us before we went to Lexington. You followed me to work, and I was working like this, carrying a small bench to read. Sugu thought that it was summer when he first met Xiaozai, and it was already close to autumn when he took a boat to find Lexington. There was no immediate action, mainly because of the handover of work. We had lived together for a long time at that time, and I felt warm just thinking about that period. I worked hard during the day, and at night I lay on the bed with a book to teach Xiaozai various knowledge, or tell some interesting stories. Having said that, it has been several years since then, and Xiaozai has hardly changed at all. The little loli has not become a girl, and her hair has not grown that much. In addition to having a little more knowledge, she can now solve linear equations in two variables. It's just a small problem for a chicken and a rabbit to live in the same cage. She knows the Pythagorean theorem, but of course she doesn't know anything about sine and cosine. There is no change in his character. He still likes dolls, toys, and comics, and his skin is flying all the time. After tilting her head and thinking for a while, Xiaozai finally remembered, and she suddenly smiled. Boss, Taro, Sister Xiao Xiao. They were all colleagues from Sugu's previous workplace. The boss is naturally the boss, a very nice person. Taro is stupid, a young man. Sister Xiao Xiao is quite cute, but her skin is a little darker because she often basks in the sun. When he went back to the ruins of the governor's mansion, he stopped by the county seat to take a look. Sugu thought for a while and said, Xiaozai must not know, your sister Xiao Xiao, she is already married and has a child. I guess that now children should be able to walk and call people baby, Xiaozai said, I want to see it. If there is a chance next time, let's go and have a look. Sugu remembered that he didn't send a red envelope at first, so if he goes there next time, he should be prepared to send one. So Xiaozai will definitely become Beizai when he grows up. I heard her giggle, Admiral, I remember Sister Xiao Xiao liked you before. Now she is married, and the groom is not you. So what? Sugu hesitated. Xiaozai stretched out his little hand and counted them with his fingers. Giving away girls and leaving out girls are the most annoying. Sugu put his palm on his face. Who taught you these things? Xiaozai did not answer Sugu's question. She asked, Admiral, when will you and Sister Miao have a baby? I think so too. Sugu looked at Bismarck. Judging from that butt, he didn't have a figure that would be easy to maintain. I thought to myself that in the whole world, there is no such thing as a ship girl getting pregnant. However, many admirals believe that as an idealistic life, as long as the ship girl firmly believes in it, nothing is impossible. We haven't been together for so many years, just because a powerful being wants to have a child, which is never an easy thing. No one knows whether it will work or not. Xiaozai longed, Sister Little Miao, she must be very cute. It's not Sister Miao, it's Sister Miao, niece Miao. Sugu remembered a picture he saw on the internet. Xiaozai was carrying a single-sided bag. There was a little Bismarck on the single-sided bag, which was very cute. Wearing sunglasses and pursed lips, Bismarck didn't know what to think. She never participated in the conversation. After passing a post office, she stood next to the mailbox and asked Sugu, Admiral, you have been holding Xiaozai, don't you feel too hot? It's not hot, Sugu replied. The governor's mansion is located in the south, and it is still relatively hot in summer. However, no matter how hot it was, I would not feel hot at all when I hugged Lexington and stroked her long hair at night, or hugged the Prince of Wales tightly and buried my head in her chest. Even if it's 10,000 times hotter, this is still an exaggeration. Even under the noon sun, hugging Xiaozai tightly, I don't feel hot, only warm. Bismarck waved his hand, forget it, it's up to you. The Kanyang branch is in the suburbs, and we arrived quickly by taking a taxi. We showed our identity as the Admiral to the guard and got in easily. The guard didn't know about Kirov's situation, so Sugu went to find the eldest sister of the ship girl branch, who was also the minister. In the office, he announced his intention to come, but learned that Kirov had gone out and could not be seen for the time being. However, after some communication and understanding, I am gratified that unless it is really a super coincidence, it must be my ship girl. Dong dong dong. This is the door of Kirov's apartment, and Sugu is knocking on the door. Despite Kirov's absence, she was not alone. Hopefully someone. Within a minute, the security door opened, revealing a crack and a head. The head of the Jianniang branch came over, and the person who led Sugu was a little lowly. She said seriously, Comrade Tashkent, these comrades are here to see you. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 818. This is the living room, not too big, not too small, with beige tiles on the floor. Xiaozai had no idea what politeness meant. She walked around, touching here and there, using many hands and feet. Anyway, I still know a little bit of propriety and handle it with care. Even so, if you are a stranger, you must not do this. It is very rude, but it doesn't matter here. The alarm clock is so beautiful. It must be made of copper. I really want to take it away. I don't know what kind of flowers were planted in the potted plants, and they looked like they were about to die. Why is the big blue and white porcelain vase placed in the corner? Sitting on the single sofa, Sugu finally saw Tashkent. She has double helix orange hair, fair skin, and is a cute little girl wearing a white dress. After all, she is a ship girl, there is no one who is not beautiful and cute. It's just a pity that I just met her and didn't jump on her immediately. She's not a very enthusiastic and energetic little loli. I brought a candy plate and fruit, and now I'm sitting on the couch beside the coffee table holding a water glass. I specifically looked at it and smelled it. The water in the glass was water, not wine, not vodka. Admiral, to be honest, Tashkent is still in a daze. The weather was so hot that even though I really wanted to eat popsicles, when I opened the curtains and saw the bright sun, I immediately didn't want to go out, so I had to sit in the room and read a book. Soon I got tired of watching, so I hit a nap and wanted to take a nap. Before I could fall asleep, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. I really didn't want to open the door, but I didn't know who it was and whether there was something important, so I went out barefoot without wearing slippers. Open the door and take a look. Comrade Tashkent, these comrades are here to see you. Who will come to find me? Although they hadn't seen each other for several years, the moment they raised their heads, they could easily recognize him. It was the Admiral. The Admiral who has disappeared for a long time and is easy to find. He just appeared so suddenly, without any warning, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. Looking around, Sugu said, "Yes, it's me. I'm back, I'm back. I'm really sorry for being away for so long. I got your information yesterday and rushed over immediately." At that time, where did you go? Even though he knew that he was nothing in the garrison, a completely dispensable role, and maybe not qualified, Tashkent couldn't help but ask. She really didn't know why the Admiral was missing. It was because everyone did something wrong, so they abandoned the garrison and everyone. Some unexpected thing happened, and due to various reasons, I couldn't return to the garrison. For example, the head was hit, resulting in loss of memory, unable to remember everyone, or being imprisoned, etc. It has been explained to many people many times, and Sugu repeated it. I see, there are still a lot of loopholes, but the Admiral said so and I believe it no matter what. Tashkent nodded, there is no other way, as long as we come back. Even though in history, Germany and the Soviet Union fought to the point of losing their minds, that was only the army, and the navy basically did not fight. Unlike the serious conflict between the German and British factions, Bismarck saw nothing special about Tashkent. It was precisely because of this that Sugu took them out instead of choosing Changchun and Trust. Well, I didn't really think about it that much, just for the sake of Xiaozai. Anyway, when she heard Tashkent's words, she glanced at Sugu and curiously asked, I forgot about it before, but I might do it again in the future. A broken mirror cannot be put back together again. The Prince of Wales chooses a dog leash. Formalin has the most likes. The meaning of the javelin is that once it is eaten in the stomach, the Admiral will be with everyone forever. Tashkent thought for a while, I hate traitors the most, serious violations of discipline, expelled from the party, reformed through labor, and shot. The latter is easy to understand. Re-education through labor is nothing more than digging potatoes in Siberia. Sugu thought for a while, and 9 times out of 10, expulsion from the party was because you were unkind and I was unjust. Since you went so far, I abandoned you. From the time when the ship girl woke up and went through the dark ages to now, if you count it carefully, there have been quite a few incidents where the ship girl abandoned the Admiral. Compared to the ship girl, she has a heart as strong as steel and will never betray her. As an ordinary person, the Admiral's heart is indeed changeable. Xiaozai came over at this time, and she blinked, Dogju. Tashkent was curious, what is that? Take off all the people's clothes, put them in an iron cage, and put in some big dogs that have been hungry for a long time. Xiaozai bared his teeth and said, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Look, there's a person there, smelling delicious, watch me eat at him. The flesh is eaten, and the bones are also eaten, clicking, like biscuits. Xiaozai crossed his arms and nodded, it makes people die in extreme fear and pain. It is very cruel and capital punishment. Tashkent nodded thoughtfully. There are also artillery attacks, Xiaozai said. Tie the people up and aim the cannon. Boom. Only fragments are left. Tashkent's eyes shine brightly. Feeling quite accomplished, Xiaozai clapped his fingers and said, cut in half, burn with gun, Ling Chi, crack the car. Unable to bear it anymore and feeling deeply that her education had failed, Sugu grabbed Xiaozai and beat her hard on the butt. Sugu was looking at Tashkent with great interest, and seemed to be a rather fierce little Lolita. He thought for a while. It seemed like he had never done anything to feel sorry for her. I guess so. From my only memory, Tashkent is a gold-skinned destroyer in the game, which is still quite rare, no higher than the fantasy rarity. When I joined the garrison, it was already at an advanced stage. There is no outstanding equipment. I remember it seems to have a gold motor, which is an improved power system. Obviously the vertical painting is a propeller, which does not increase the speed but increases the dodge value by 10 points. However, I have the impression that I just like to install sonar and deep drop bombs on the destroyer, and I don't want to go back and forth over and over again. Anyway, the dodge of the destroyer is based on appearance. With the highest dodge value in the entire game, the fantasy Little Princess is the best example. To be honest, I really don't remember whether she took off her equipment or not. Then again, from the perspective of the game, I was very kind to her. After all, I bought the Winter Warm Wave. There are so many ship girls in the garrison, but few of them have changed their clothes. Winter Warm Tide, muttering to himself, always felt a little familiar. He almost choked, but after a while Sugu finally thought about it, mainly because he had heard Lexington tease him several times. It seems to be quite a nasty and perverted thing, not worthy of a human being. As long as you collect all the big broken amethyst, Santiago, Sukbaiter, Kylan, Winter Warm Tide Tashkent and Archer Fish, you will have a beautiful butt group for the ship girl. After coughing, Sugu didn't dare to think about it anymore. He looked around. Kirov had gone out, but there was another one. He asked, Tashkent, why didn't you see Engels? Where did she go? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 819. It's quite easy to find Engels. After sitting at home for a while and taking a rest, I left home, crossed a square, and first went to the only store in the Kanyang branch. I didn't see anyone there, so I walked along the cobblestone-lined avenue. The path went to the beach and I found people. From the time I left home, only more than 10 minutes had passed, definitely not more than 20 minutes, not counting the time everyone spent buying ice cream and iced Coke in the store. There, wearing short sleeves and shorts, standing on the stone, Engels Tashkent said. Passing through Tashkent, Sugu found Engels from a distance. The little loli was not tall and had short purple hair like a melon rind. He recalled that the navies of various countries around the world have traditionally named their warships after the country's provinces, rivers, mountains, and great figures, and warships of the same type use the same type of name. To be honest, when I was playing a game before, I read Bismarck as Bismarck or Pismark more than once, and I didn't recognize the iron-blooded Prime Minister at all. Not only that, Hood, Nelson, Rodney, and Tirpitz didn't recognize any of them. However, the name Engels is very familiar. Engels, that was a pretty special destroyer. Orbs class, originally named Jesna, later renamed Engels. An astonishing artillery experiment was conducted, equipped with a battleship class 305 mm recoilless rifle. Although it was discovered during the test that although this gun was powerful, its accuracy, rate of fire, and range of fire were not ideal, and its layout was inconvenient, it was later changed back to an ordinary destroyer. By the way, the designer of the 305 mm recoilless rifle was even accused of wasting national property and sentenced to jail. Ship Girl comes from the memory of steel and people's expectations. Hood became a girl with glasses because he mistakenly identified the Prinz Eugen. Even if it was later changed back to an ordinary destroyer, people only remember that Engels was equipped with a 305 mm recoilless gun. So the girl Engels who has inherited the soul of the destroyer Engels now looks like a cute little Lolita carrying a cannon. As a destroyer, I always keep my words, caliber is justice. There are no beautiful beaches here, just a bunch of jagged rocks. Tashkent volunteered, I'll call her. Sugu saw Engels raising his hands as if he was giving a speech. Besides her, there were many little Lolita, all of them looked very happy. He asked, what are they doing? A boring trick. Tashkent curled his lips in disdain and lightly kicked the stones at his feet. Sugu looked at the sky and saw that there was no Sunday. It was cloudy and he felt confident. Anyway, there is nothing going on, so you can wait slowly. I was quite looking forward to such a scene. Engels accidentally saw several people sitting on one side, and they seemed familiar, so he walked over out of curiosity and found that the Admiral was here. His expression must be very exciting. Let's sit here for a while, don't disturb them. What, a boring trick. Just like this, on the rocks by the sea, Bismarck was standing, facing the sea breeze like an unsheathed sword. Sugu was sitting, hugging Xiaoxiao. Tashkent said, Admiral, you don't know, Engels. Comrades, we can't go on like this. We have to stand up and resist. The sea is the back. Because she had been shouting for a long time and her face was flushed, Engels looked quite excited. She stared closely at the little loli standing in front of her and didn't notice anyone coming. To some it was a boring trick, to her it was a revolution. When the Nazis came to arrest, cough cough cough, Engels coughed desperately, her expression serious. When they asked us to go to class at 8 o'clock in the morning, we didn't say anything. It's not difficult at all to get up early, and there's no point in sleeping in. When they asked us to do homework every day, we didn't say anything. It only took an hour to finish it anyway, and it was easy. When they asked us to go to class at 6 o'clock, and when they asked us to go to bed at 9 o'clock in the evening, they asked us to do it every day. When we have 3 hours of homework, there is no one to speak for us. A little loli was lying on the stone. She said, it's impossible for classes to start at 6 o'clock. I've only been here not long ago, and I've already heard that your original class time was at 8:30. Look now, the class time has become 8 o'clock. Although this is only half an hour earlier, we don't resist. The next time will be 7:30, and the next time will be 7 o'clock. It's not far from 6 o'clock. Engels thought to himself that attending class at 8 o'clock is not enough to sleep, it is too early. A little blonde loli has been awake for a long time. She has been quiet all the time, and her killer move is as soon as she speaks, classes are at 8:30 in the winter, and 8 o'clock in the summer. It's always been like this. Engels was immediately stopped by the question, and she scratched her hair. Although it is like this now, if we don't do something, who can guarantee that it will still be like this in the future? You know, adults and children are naturally opposed to each other and cannot be reconciled. The blonde girl retorted. At the time, Instructor Koenigsberg herself complained that the class time in the morning was too early and it was difficult to get up. Since she said it, the class time in the morning cannot be any earlier in the future. Don't listen to those adults. They may go back on their word at any time. Every pore of them is full of lies. Engels naturally suffered such a loss. She said vividly, I will only speak for 2 minutes. After this question, we get out of class is over. I don't give homework. The exam is easy. The little blonde loli didn't know what to say. This is a true story. I really don't want to go to class, I just want to play. It is useless for one person to speak, it will be better if everyone speaks together. Engels raised his hand and clasped his fingers. We really have too many classes a day. There are 7 classes every day, 4 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Each class lasts a full 35 minutes. This is what a terrible number, how inhumane. Every little loli nodded. No one liked class, that was for sure. Engels punched the sky. Comrades, we have to stand up, we have to tell them that we have had enough, we do not accept it. We demand 20 minutes for each class and 30 minutes for breaks. 5 days a day there are 3 classes in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. There are only 3 classes a week. 2 months in the winter vacation and 3 months in the summer vacation. By the way, physical education, music, and handicraft classes are also required, instead of mathematics, geometry, and physics class. Combat class cannot teach us how to dodge bombardment, skillfully control ship equipment, and launch torpedoes in the classroom every day. If that doesn't work, we have to do it in practice. Support. Agree. I support. While all the destroyers supported it, some people still spoke against it. A little Lolita in a blue dress said, "No, they will definitely not agree. It's not a question of whether they can do it, they certainly can't. Resist, we must resist, overthrow the rule of those adults, and become the masters from now on." Engels said, "We are going on strike. If they don't agree to our demands, they will never go back to class. We will march, raise our flags, shout our slogans, and let everyone know that we will never surrender." Boring, a little loli who had been silent from beginning to end, stood up, smiled contemptuously and left. Looking at the back of the little loli who left, Engels shook his head. "Not everyone understands and supports our work. They don't know that we are not working for one person's happiness, we are working for the happiness of everyone." Although Engels said very nicely, some little loli stood up. "It's so hot, I'm going back to blow the fan, I want to eat popsicles." Comrade, don't let the decadent life, a popsicle, a pudding, a snack, or a glass of ice Coke blind you from pursuing the truth. Don't you know that we are saving the whole world, all destroyers, people left? Engels was almost crying. She said, hey, don't leave. We can still do this. Through strikes and demonstrations, we ask them to improve our treatment. Our daily pocket money must be doubled 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. By then, you can have whatever toys you want, and you can have whatever you want to eat. A childish-looking little loli, she said the key point at once, "No, you will definitely get beaten. If the child is disobedient, the adult will take action directly, knocking the head, slapping the palm of the hand, spanking the child, forcing him to stand or run. They are too powerful and have no way to resist." Engels suffered a lot. He was punished for sleeping during class and copying the text. At this time, she crossed her arms and nodded thoughtfully. "Political power comes from the barrel of a gun. We must have our own armed forces, firm faith. As long as we have firm faith, battleships are not our opponent at all. Those heavy the cruiser could only kneel beneath us." Although some people left, there were still a few who stayed. As for how many people are sincere and how many people are just watching the fun, I don't know. Engels nodded happily, and she shouted, "Those who have not left yet are our comrades. Dear Dovorich, let us devote ourselves to the revolution together. Now everyone sings with us, 1, 2, 3, let's start. Hey, those adults are a bunch of black crows, trying to trample us under their feet. From the coast of Britain to Siberia, hey, the most powerful destroyers in the world." While singing and imagining the era of destroyers, Engels saw several people sitting not far away. She saw Tashkent first, exclaimed, and immediately shouted, "Comrade Tashkent, you are here too. Have you decided to join our revolutionary team?" "You fool." Engels only heard this answer, and then she saw the man sitting next to Tashkent, stammering and speechless. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 820. Even though it was already afternoon, the sun was still shining brightly in the sky and the temperature showed no tendency to drop at all. Only when the sea breeze blows over, it brings a bit of coolness. There is a big banyan tree at the entrance of the shop next to the square. The canopy of the big banyan tree is as lush as a canopy, and there are many tables placed under the shade of the tree. With his short hair hanging down, Engels was sitting at the table, digging into the pudding with a small wooden spoon and putting a spoonful into his mouth. He suddenly showed a happy expression on his face. When Xiao Zai saw Engels, she took a bite of pudding and felt that it didn't taste very good. Not silky enough, not sweet enough equals sweet, not as delicious as the pudding made by Sister Emden. If the pudding made by Sister Emden is rated at 90%, the pudding in front of me is at best 60%, barely passing, and simply vulnerable. Engels finished the pudding quickly. She lay on the table, her legs dangling, looking at the snacks on the table, and picked up another bottle of marble soda. He skillfully pried open the bottle cap without using a straw, and drank it all with his mouth facing the mouth of the bottle. Then he let out a ha sound, revealing a look that looked like I walked in the desert for 3 days and 3 nights without a drop of water, and my mouth was dry, my tongue was about to die, but I suddenly found a kettle, which was filled with water. I drank all the water in one breath, with a relaxed expression. I'm finally saved. Sugu looked at Engels and thought that this little Lolita was much easier to deal with than Tashkent. Just when I was passing by the store and preparing to go home, I saw her looking longingly at the store, so I decided to take her to buy snacks. Would you like some popsicles? Would you like pudding? Take whatever you want, no need to be polite. With such a simple 3-hit combo, it was obvious that Engels' favorability was rising steadily. It could be said that he was ad 1 right before his eyes. Ad 1. Ad 1. Prompts popped up. To be honest, for him today, problems that can be solved with money are not a problem. Well, it's still within the range, and it's not that expensive. Although the town hall has always made a lot of money, not to mention barely maintaining a living, it is not that easy for such a big family with hundreds to close to 200 people. Engels picked up another piece of chocolate and just tore open the tin foil. She noticed that Sugu was looking at her and asked curiously, "Admiral, what are you looking at?" "Don't call me comrade anymore." Sugu remembered that Engels had called him comrade when he first saw him. It's been a long time since they last met, and if they were ordinary people, even father and son wouldn't be close to each other. The admiral and the ship girl are very different. There is always a kind of connection between them. In fact, Engels is quite energetic and heartless. I only heard her say, "Just buy me something delicious, chocolate, dessert, pudding, whatever." "Sir, commander, head of state, chief, general, or comrade, I will call you whichever one you want to hear." When Sugu saw Engels enjoying his meal, he couldn't help but ask, "Does Kirov never give you pocket money?" "Here," Engels said. She raised her hand and made a small gesture with her thumb and index finger. "Only a little bit." Sugu didn't believe Engels. He looked at Tashkent. Tashkent said, "We will do as much as others do, no more and no less." Engels said, "She doesn't give us Coke, she doesn't give us soda. This is junk food, and that is junk food. There is nothing in the house." Xiao Zai said, "You have vodka, what kind of Coke do you want to drink?" "Drinking vodka every day." Engels was unhappy. She thought for a long time about how she should retort, "Aren't you tired of eating pears every day?" Sugu didn't know what to say, and thought to himself, "Are you all so brave? Why does it make vodka look like an ordinary drink, comparable to Coke?" After just sitting in the store for a while, everyone went back quickly. Fortunately, Tashkent, Engels was carrying 2 big bags of snacks. She even wanted to pack all the snacks in the entire snack cabinet in the store. 2 little girls, Xiaozai and Engels, were sleeping on the sofa. They were talking about things in the town hall. Xiaozai slanders trust and now plays with fireflies every day, or is with Xiao Liden again, screaming like, "Sister, sister, must have forgotten that he is still trust, or is Susiat." Kuokang became Changchun, a girl and a super powerful guided missile destroyer. "I rarely say send you to Siberia to dig potatoes anymore. Now I am very arrogant. When I see someone, I will say sit in a row and eat fruit and give me a bastard. But no one could defeat her, and there was nothing they could do. Although she stayed with Yuxian, she didn't become a little cook, but just a big foodie. He sticks to the admiral's side all day long, begging for a hug. This time Sugu had time to look at the photo hanging on the wall. Kirov probably took it. Before each trip, he would get to know everyone carefully about the personality of the person he was looking for and what taboos he was looking for to avoid problems. Let's just say Veneto, you must not mention her breasts in front of her, not even cups, airports, smooth sailings, or a sure thing, otherwise your life will easily be in danger. For example, the sea is open to all rivers, the waves are turbulent, and it is ready to come out. It is best not to mention it. Papaya, milk, and pig's trotters are also sensitive words. I asked Lexington carefully, and Xiangxin also asked whether I was holding him or being held. Changchun was really an admiral, and Changchun also asked. Even though they didn't know much, they still knew that Kirov liked taking pictures. Tashkent responded, hold the camera all day long. Sugu only saw a photo, including high-rise buildings sealed by dark clouds, abandoned tanks, a barren land, and a lonely lighthouse. It's not like guarding the palace. Leipzig, Jade, and Enterprising are serious people who are not good at taking photos, so they like to take secret photos. Obviously she was just talking to CV-16 normally, but the two of them looked particularly close in her photos. He was obviously just looking at Ko, but after all, her swimsuit was quite cute. In her photos, he turned into a pervert and a voyeur. Where is this? Tashkent replied, where I used to live. From Houston's words, Sugu already knew that they had just moved here recently. So they are so close to the garrison, but they only learned about them now. Not seeing Kirov, he was still a little curious about what he looked like. It's all scenery, no photos of you. Yes, Tashkent went to Kirov's room, and soon he took out a thick photo album. Sugu finally saw Kirov's photo. He was beautiful, but he was wearing a military coat and braided hair. He was really rustic. Tashkent begins to tell the story of the photo. There was a war. Two countries were at war. They fought for a month and many people died. The fighting was temporarily over. That day we went to the battlefield to see it. It was like hell. In fact, Sister Kirov didn't want us to go, so we went secretly. Later, we encountered someone attacking us. We are ship girls and cannot participate in human wars, but if someone wants to attack us, we can resist. It snowed heavily that day, and we were sitting in front of the fireplace. This is because our friend is from the Soviet Union, but she doesn't know how to drink. We sailed for a long time that time. This picture, and this picture are together. In this picture, the seal is basking in the sun. In this picture, the polar bear is swimming among the ice floes, and then swims quietly. We walked to the seal and pounced on it. In this picture, the polar bear was eating the seal, and it was very happy. In fact, we wanted to stop the polar bear, but Sister Kirov said no, we can't disturb nature. We can only regret that the seal obviously doesn't. It's okay to bask in the sun, it's absolutely necessary. Sugu said, Siberia. It's not Siberia, and there is no Siberia now. Tashkent said, we are in the Czech city of Viz, where the winter is extremely cold. Our town hall is in the south, and it's very warm in winter. It's still a bit cold. Sugu introduced the town hall. I thought to myself, it's not like being wrapped up tightly in winter, but it's better to be in summer, where everyone is dressed cool, which is a blessing every day. Long legs are just a trivial matter, just an appetizer. Beach volleyball, swimwear, wet temptation, and vacuum are the main meal. At this moment, Xiaozai and Engels quarreled for some reason. Bismarck, why are they quarreling? Bismarck explained with a smile, let's put it this way, At first Engels said that he had firm beliefs, so his firepower could compete with a battleship. Xiaozai is a battleship, but she didn't believe it, so she said, "You are just a destroyer, and you are the best braggart." Then the two got into an argument and wanted to practice. Sugu suddenly didn't know what expression to show. He just thought to himself that Engels, your little destroyer really has big dreams. Xiaozai's training level is not low. Although it is not as good as those battleships that have been modified, it is still enough to deal with you. Next thing is a little weird. Everyone waited until the afternoon, into the evening, after dinner, and even into the evening, but Kirov did not come back. "Admiral, let's play chess." "Okay," Sugu said, "it won't work without a bet." Finally, as the night gradually deepened, after 10 o'clock and close to 11 o'clock, with the sound of click 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 keys being unlocked, Tashkent said, "Sister Kirov must be back." However, the door opened, and a beautiful purple-haired girl came in supporting a drunk blonde girl. "Sister Tuscaloosa," Tashkent said. "Where's Sister Kirov?" Tuscaloosa put the blonde girl on the sofa. "Here." Tashkent and Engels couldn't believe it, Xiaozai knew nothing, and Bismarck was confused. Sugu had seen Kirov's photo and saw the fashionable girl with long wavy blonde hair, wearing a sleeveless shirt decorated with ruffles and white jeans, who looked slim and curvy. Kirov. He didn't believe it. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 821. Oh, are you that guy? After introducing himself, Sugu saw that the girl Tashkent called Sister Tuscaloosa, who was obviously the girl from the heavy cruiser Tuscaloosa, approached him face to face and did not stop until she was 10 centimeters away. "When I came down, I seemed to want to see myself more clearly." After helping Kirov get drunk back from Tuscaloosa, he could guess that the other party must be Kirov's friend. He guessed that he must have heard about himself from Kirov. Sugu replied, "Yes, I am she, Admiral." Scum Tuscaloosa laughed, with disgust on her face. She didn't know how to be polite and didn't speak politely. Sugu was speechless, thinking that Tuscaloosa already knew what he had done. I don't know who said it, but it was probably Kirov. There is absolutely no way to explain it. It can be said that leaving the garrison was an accident and had to be done out of necessity. It can also be said that the purpose of collecting equipment is for the development of the garrison and to concentrate on doing big things. But after building people, they ignore them without caring at all. Even a sharp tongue and a lotus-like tongue cannot confuse right and wrong. Xiaozai and Engels were unreliable. They just watched Kirov for a while and then went to do their own things, such as playing backgammon. Don't worry at all, it's just too heartless. Tashkent is much more reliable, but she is still a little girl and doesn't understand that much. It was Bismarck who helped Kirov sit on the sofa, but unfortunately there was no sobering soup or tea, just water. She heard what Tuscaloosa said and thought that she used to be quite a scumbag, but now she is a good person. "After all, I am my admiral, my husband, so I still have to help." I couldn't explain, so I just helped change the subject. "You're so drunk, how much did you drink?" "As long as you are willing to use the power of the ship suit, the ship girl will not get drunk at all, just alcohol." Sugu remembered that in the garrison, the Prince of Wales drank mostly red wine, and drank too much. Occasionally, he would get drunk once, and then he would start to act drunkenly, and did many embarrassing things that were beyond common sense, such as sitting under a tree singing and shouting some pretty mean things. Even so, she never used the power of the ship suit. She kept saying that it was too boring to use the power of the ship suit while drinking. It wasn't like she didn't want to drink and had no choice but to socialize. Then without using the power of ship equipment, everyone has their own drinking capacity. However, for such a majestic Soviet ship, Kirov can actually get drunk. To be honest, it's a bit embarrassing. Li Xian would secretly drink a glass of white wine from time to time. Chang Chun even defeated many people by himself and defeated all the opponents in the town's mansion. After drinking too much, his face would turn red and he would become more beautiful. They drank the most sweet potato wine and wine made by Yuxian. He just casually mentioned the Kirov cannon. Unexpectedly, Kirov immediately fell silent. He seemed to be thinking about the past, and finally squatted on the ground and cried, sobbing, as if an infatuated girl had been abandoned by her boyfriend. I finally stopped crying. I thought it would be over, but when I went to the bar to drink at night, I went crazy after drinking 2 bottles. Wine, serve the wine, I have plenty of money. Not enough, not enough, I want more. As Tuscaloosa asked how much wine they drank, she showed a horrified expression. It was the first time she had seen someone drinking like this. They drank the wine like water. If I haven't finished 1 cup, I'll be done with 1 bottle, and another bottle after another. It's really scary. The problem is that I looked at the wine bottle during this period, and the alcohol content was not low. Sugu wanted to ask, if you drink so much, are you really afraid of someone picking up your body while you're drunk? In fact, he still knows that unless something happens to a ship girl, she will not drink so much stupidly, and she will not get drunk if there is no reliable person around her. Even after being drunk to death, there is still a trace of clarity inside. As ship girls, they are very sensitive to malice. Anyone who dares to reach out to them can only be said to be waiting for sanctions. On the other hand, if you help them well, you may gain favor, and finally succeed in bailing out the boat. Kirov leaned on the back of the sofa, tilting his head, and his long wavy blonde hair hung down. Even though she was very drunk, she did not turn into a crazy woman, she was still a beautiful girl and a beautiful woman. She was drunk, but not drunk to death or unconscious. It would be easier to do if you were unconscious, just throw it on the bed. She obviously heard everyone talking, and she waved her hands, I'm not drunk, I can drink, how could I be drunk? I'm so drunk, Sugu said. If a person says he is not drunk, he must be drunk. This is a wise saying. Kirov seemed to have just seen Sugu at this time, and she stretched out her hand. But she was sitting on the single sofa, and Sugu was sitting on the long sofa. There was still a distance between the two of them, so of course they couldn't catch each other. It was Bismarck who supported her and prevented her from falling to the ground. Chirping, she said something that no one could understand, pushed Bismarck's hand away, shook her head and stood up. If Bismarck, as a battleship, wanted to subdue a light cruiser like Kirov, it would be a piece of cake if she used force, but she didn't. She just stood aside to ensure that she didn't fall. Kirov staggered to sit next to Sugu. Even though he was so drunk, he still recognized him. Even if you turn into ashes, I will still recognize you. This sentence is not a big problem for the ship girl, Admiral. Sugu responded. Come, let's drink. Kirov stretched out a hand. Wine, bring me the wine. Engels was confused and didn't know which counter he found a bottle of wine from, but Bismarck snatched it away first. When a person is drunk, don't expect her to do anything normal. Kirov looked at Tuscaloosa, then patted Sugu on the shoulder. Tuscaloosa, look, this is the admiral and comrade I told you. You are really unlucky to have such an admiral. With this in mind, Tuscaloosa guessed what Kirov was going to do. Kirov saw the water glass on the coffee table. She picked it up and drank it in one gulp. She didn't know whether it was water or drank it as wine. She looked at Advisor Su and said, Admiral, do you remember me? Remember? Sugu thought to himself, how many people had not returned to the guardhouse, but there was a list, many of which had been crossed out, but there were still a few left. When everyone is found, the mission is complete, but still not complete. It is necessary to build the best tutelary house, fill it with laughter, and make everyone happy. This is what Zai was promised in the first place. There is no other way. Don't keep it when you get on the boat and get off the boat. It will kill you. Kirov crossed his arms. She obviously didn't believe what Sugu said. She shook her head. Let me ask you, who am I? Kirov Shugo said, Kirov light cruiser. No, Kirov waved his hand, I am Anastasia. Sister Kirov named herself Tashkent, explained as she lay on tiptoes on the back of the sofa from behind. When Sugu looked at her, she put her hand on her chest, I'm Lilia. In addition to being named after a battleship, a ship girl also has her own name. Of course Sugu knew this. He was a little aggrieved and thought to himself that we just met, how could I know your name? I knew you didn't know, forget it, I didn't expect you to remember me in the first place. Kirov suddenly approached Sugu. Even though the girl was very beautiful, he was still startled. But my cannon, you must remember, the Kirov gun, the Soviet triple 180mm gun, with 8 firepower and long range. Mine, that's mine. Your cannon is on Helena. I'll return it to you when I get back to the garrison. Sugu had already communicated with Helena, and Helena agreed to return it. The Kirov cannon can be said to be an artifact in the game. When equipped with light cruisers and heavy cruisers, they can take 2 shots in artillery battles, 2 bombardments or 2 anti-submarine attacks. However, here, it is no longer a game, it is not a turn-based game, just you and me. The Kirov cannon simply has a long range and can attack from a distance. They are very strong for heavy cruisers, but for light cruisers, they mainly serve as escorts, enemy detection, and anti-submarine warfare. It's not very useful, it's a bit useless. Kirov looked around and saw no familiar figure. I didn't see Helena's little bitch and big-breasted monster. Sugu thought to himself, as expected, the problem is not the scarcity but the inequality. Forget it if it is a battleship, we are not in the same boat. When a mere light cruiser ranks first among all light cruisers, it actually has such a low breast capacity. It is really excessive and annoying. This was the case in the town hall, especially the leaders of the Katir class, who were not happy to see Helen. Speaking the truth while drunk, it seems that Kirov also hates Helena. I don't know if Kirov knows everything. He is the admiral who has returned from a long absence. Anyway, Sugu said, she is not here. She was in the garrison and did not come. Kirov suddenly said, do you think I am beautiful, or do you think she is beautiful? Sugu looked at Kirov. He had long blonde wavy hair and a pretty good figure. His white shirt and jeans outlined his seductive curves, which was unexpectedly sexy. It has completely changed compared to the photo, and is much more beautiful. Even so, his wife Helena is more beautiful. She gives out rings when they meet, not just because she feels guilty for harassing people in the past. However, you must listen to the drunk person when you speak, and you still know this, you are beautiful. Don't lie to me, don't comfort me. Kirov lifted the blonde hair from his ear. Admiral, look at it, do these earrings of mine look good? It's beautiful, Sugu said casually. After saying this, he saw a drop-shaped earring on Kirov's crystal earlobe. Kirov touched the earrings. I'm just saying this looks good. Tuscaloosa muttered that she was opposed to buying these earrings. She preferred star-shaped or large earrings. I don't think they look good. Kirov suddenly stood up and turned around unsteadily in front of Sugu. Do you think my clothes look good? Good looking. This sentence is true, Sugu thought to himself. As long as a person is good looking, he will look good no matter what clothes he wears. He is still a bit particular. The fat boy from South Dakota is a little short and his skin is a little dark, so he can only dress in a cute direction. I used to try on sexy clothes in the governor's mansion, wearing black stockings and high heels. It was so awkward that I was laughed at by Washington for a long time. Kirov picked up his bangs with 5 fingers and combed his long golden hair all the way to the back of his head. He repeated this several times. She sat on the sofa and stretched out her arms to wrap around Sugu's neck, not minding that her body was unreservedly it stuck to his body. "Admiral, look, I can be very beautiful as long as I change my clothes." Yes, Sugu's body was a little stiff. He thought that sentence was correct. There were no ugly women, only lazy women who didn't know how to dress up. Of course it's definitely not strict, but there are many truths to it. China's PS, Korea's head-changing technique, and Japan's disguise technique. Kirov pulled at his collar, revealing a large area of white and greasy skin. Sugu is no longer the innocent young man he once was. If there weren't so many people around, he would definitely look at her twice, but of course he wouldn't touch him. However, when someone was around, he still turned his head and looked at his wife, Bismarck, and motioned her to think of a solution. Bismarck shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he was helpless. "If I had dressed like this before, it would have been okay," there must have been, Kirov said. "Equipment, drills, sorties, secretaryship. Hinata and ISE were dressed in such a tacky way that you didn't even want to look at them. After they grew up, you threw them into the expedition team. Assaulter, Tianlong, Longtian, and Sukufu. Sukufu was also a local girl, but later she changed her clothes and became beautiful. Originally, M1 was in the fish team of." Although I had heard Kirov say a lot of things when we were in the bar, I had never heard of these, at least not in such detail. It's natural for a woman to gossip, and while she was filled with anger, Tuscaloosa blinked her eyes brightly. Bismarck put his hand on his forehead, saying that this is what his admiral looks like, as long as he is cute and beautiful. Sugu was speechless. Yes, he was a powerful party, and he was also a party to establish a solid foundation. The raiders didn't change into heart hunters and were not willing to pull them out at all. Even though Tianlong and Ryuada were expedition captains, they didn't start practicing until they had their costumes changed. Such as Guangrong, Scharnhorst, Fuzu, etc., even though they are not strong, as long as the graphics are exquisite and beautiful enough, they can have whatever they want. Sugu looked at Kirov and thought, "Kirov, if you had such a costume change in the game. Not much to say, the secretaryship's service favorability must be maxed out, and the Kirov cannon must be stripped off if it is not strong, but at least it will be given other equipment." "Pretty, I'm pretty now," Kirov said in Sugu's ear. "Ha ha ha, call me wife." "Why don't you call me wife?" "Ah." Suguwei opened his mouth with an innocent expression on his face. How could he be so unruly? That night, Kirov struggled for a long time before falling asleep. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 822. The pendulum swings and makes a gentle da sound, and the hour hand of the grandfather clock is pointing at the position between 8 and 9. The floral curtains were not drawn, and the morning sunlight shone in the room, which was already bright. At this point in the past, Kirov had already gotten up and had even finished breakfast. If you don't have a task, stand by the window and look at the sea in the distance, or sit cross-legged on the bed and play with the camera. Now her head was buried in the soft pillow, and her chest was rising and falling with only breathing. However, it wasn't that she was still asleep and didn't wake up. In fact, she had already woken up. She just remembered what happened last night and really didn't want to get up. Dying. Really dying. Just die like this. Everything felt normal when he was drunk. Now that he was sober, Kirov couldn't understand why the admiral suddenly appeared. But one thing is clear, it is definitely not a dream. I remember everything about that familiar face and the helpless expression on it, including the frowning brows and the swaying eyes. If it is a dream, I have dreamed it so many times before, without exception. I can't remember anything after waking up from the dream, only a vague impression. In addition, I could vaguely hear the Admiral's voice coming from the living room. So why don't you use the power of the ship's equipment? As long as the boiler is running, you can wake up immediately. Kirov still remembers that he was drunk, holding his hands around the Admiral's neck, leaning in with his whole body without any reservation, and saying something like, "As long as I change my clothes, I can be very beautiful. Comrade, even though you are an admiral, I am a ship girl, everyone is on the same level, and now I want to criticize you." Finally moving, Kirov rolled on the bed. She lay on her back and looked at the ceiling, covering her face with one hand. It's too embarrassing. What should I do? What should I say when we meet? Say hello directly. What if you are teased? Punch up? He still pretended that he couldn't remember anything, and then saw the Admiral's surprised expression. But I have absolutely no talent as an actor. Should I keep my eyes wide open or jump with fright like in a stage play? And is it better to meet and ask, "Who are you and why are you here?" or "When did the Admiral come here?" It doesn't feel like it's appropriate. The most important thing is that even if you pretend to know nothing, you will still encounter ridicule. Kirov suddenly laughed, and she remembered that the Admiral had promised her to return the Kirov cannon to her. It's really worth being happy, he's such a good person. But think about it, what if you get the Kirov cannon? It's not the same as before, indifferent and indifferent. The Admiral might even regret it, he often did this kind of thing. Kirov subconsciously turned her head, and she saw the clothes placed on the chair next to the bed, and the paper bag placed next to the wardrobe, which also contained clothes. She remembered that she was only wearing underwear. She remembered that Bismarck had helped take off those clothes and wiped her body with a towel. I have to say that it is a great thing to trouble Bismarck, who is a battleship, to help. So the question comes again, which piece of clothing is better to wear next? I probably can't wear the clothes I originally wore. While drinking at the bar, the wine spilled on my clothes. Later, when I left the bar, I was drunk and leaned against the dirty wall, trying to sober myself up slowly. I fell to the ground several times, but Tuscaloosa finally helped me get home. Should I dress more fashionably? The Admiral would probably like it more, but I'm really embarrassed. Kirov finally reached out and touched his hair, hesitating whether to tie it into a braid or just let it hang down. Dedicate yourself to the motherland, even if you are faced with a hail of bullets, you must charge. It doesn't matter if he sacrifices his life for the garrison, even if the target is a deep-sea flagship that may sink at any time. I really don't want to face this kind of problem, it's so difficult to deal with. There was a flash of lightning in her mind, and Kirov suddenly thought of something. She jumped up from the bed, squatted beside the bed, and then fumbled to drag a small wooden box over, and saw neatly placed vodka inside. If one bottle is not enough, just 2 bottles. If 2 bottles are not enough, just 3 bottles. There is always a way to solve the problem. The new day started with tons of drinks. Kirov was drinking happily, and everyone in the living room had woken up. Xiaozai and Engels were playing cards, Xiaozai was killing everyone, and Tashkent was sitting next to him eating biscuits. Kirov hasn't gotten up yet. Sugu stood by the window and saw a few little girls running past downstairs. He didn't know what kind of destroyer they were, and maybe even ordinary people. Bismarck stood beside him, and she said, "Kirov drank so much wine and went to bed so late. It's not surprising that he couldn't get up. If a ship girl doesn't use the power of her ship suit, she's just like an ordinary person in most situations. I'm afraid I'm already awake. I remember what happened last night and I'm too embarrassed to see anyone." Sugu lay on the windowsill. He laughed, then thought about it and said, Actually, that's not necessarily the case. Sugu thought to himself that according to Lexington, Kirov's character was quite generous. It would be better to say that Mao Zedong all has the same character, and everyone is a tomboy. I have heard before that many people build rough ships, whether battleships, light cruisers, or destroyers. It is very common for them to tease the admiral after drinking. When they feel ready, they never wait for a ring or ask for a ring. They prepare their own rings one by one and get ready for the wedding. Besides, inside the Tutelary mansion, I believe that I am actually Japanese at heart, which is quite reserved. Chang Chun was originally bold, but she was different. She was as heroic as Wichita or something. More than once, he was misunderstood that he was going to take action against her. In fact, it was her who took action against him. To be honest, it was overwhelming, but at least he was an upright person, so he didn't make any mistakes. Bismarck thought for a while, it's possible. For a moment, Sugu suddenly snickered, and he asked, Bismarck, you helped Kirov to the room last night and helped her take off her clothes? Bismarck responded, thinking that it would be too irresponsible to throw the person on the bed. Anyway, he was also a woman, so there was nothing to care about. Sugu looked around to ensure that the little loli couldn't hear. He whispered, if Kirov doesn't remember what happened last night, this is home, you can be casual, and generally you won't consider anyone coming. Now it happens to be in summer, it's not cold at all. After being drunk all night, she must be uncomfortable and want to take a shower. Anyway, if it were me, it would definitely be like this. Do you think she would come out without clothes? Bismarck said coldly, I'm sorry, I didn't take off her underwear. Even underwear, Fletcher always takes off all her clothes in her room in the townhouse. Sugu nodded thoughtfully, thinking that Fletcher didn't know how to restrain himself. Among the several sisters, except for Sullivan, no one is reliable. He suddenly saw Bismarck looking at him and coughed quickly. I have the heart to explain, but after thinking about it, I still don't cover my ears. Bismarck said bluntly, Admiral, can't you think of something else in your head? Sugu felt aggrieved, and he quickly explained, I'm not a pervert, I just thought, if this was a comic, this scene would definitely appear. I don't read comics. I can read it occasionally, Sugu thought to himself, and liked reading comics with Bazai. Bismarck laughed in disgust. Unlike Bazai and Xiaozai, she thought comics were cancer. Squeak. The sound of pushing the door sounded at this time, and Sugu saw Kirov coming out and looking at him. Of course, he didn't wear any clothes, or just wore underwear, and screamed and hid in the room. I saw that her blonde hair was not braided and was hanging freely. She has changed her clothes. She is not as sexy as yesterday. She is still very beautiful in white and blue skirt. She looks like a slim girl next door. Admiral Kirov saw Sugu. She had been thinking about it for a long time, or was it better to say that alcohol helped her finish thinking in 1 second? She decided not to pretend, so be it. Are you up? Nurturing words. Sugu smelled the smell of alcohol on Kirov's body, and he really didn't know what to say. You idiots might have gone too far. It was necessary. Kirov replied, it's almost 9 o'clock, I have to get up. Of course, Sugu wouldn't talk about what happened yesterday. It would be easy to say when we get to know each other in the future, but he didn't feel good yet. Thinking of his hangover, he asked kindly, do you have a headache? Got used to. It's not that it doesn't hurt, but I'm used to it. Okay, you are awesome. Sugu said, it's better to drink less in the future. It's very uncomfortable when you're drunk. It's okay on this point, Kirov would never compromise, and she refused. You can have less of anything, but not less wine. Wine that cannot be ignited is not worthy of being called wine and should not be taken out. Sugu looked at Kirov. He opened his mouth and suddenly didn't know what to say. Kirov looked Sugu up and down, and now he could really see clearly. She asked curiously, when did the Admiral come back? How did he find this place? I've been back for several years. I heard someone said you were here, so I came here. Sugu repeated it when he saw someone repeating it, and Sugu explained it carefully to Kirov. After he finished speaking, Kirov kept nodding. He suddenly thought of the past. If it was still that time, he would never have had the courage or the confidence. At this time, he stretched out his hand and said without doubt, "Here, I'm here to take you back to our garrison, back to our port area, go back to our home." Kirov only saw Sugu with his back to the sun, and felt that the surroundings turned into a dream in an instant. That was the Admiral, her own Admiral. She bit her lip and held out her hand. Kirov suddenly thought, when did the Admiral become so gentle? Sure enough, it must have something to do with changing her hairstyle and clothes. This time Sugu was really wronged. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 823. Engels held a box of chocolates and waved it in front of Sugu. "Admiral, Admiral, comrade, comrade, can I have this?" Of course. Sugu snapped his fingers coolly. "Finding you is not the end, but the beginning. Even though there are other things like shipwrecks in the game, no matter how hard you try, your favorability will never drop. But here, if you do something wrong as an admiral, you might be in trouble." All in all, the day after meeting everyone, he took everyone shopping in order to build up his goodwill, or make up for it. This Engels saw another large bottle of Coke, a black drink that corrodes the human soul, and he liked it very much. She looked back at Sugu, blinking her big eyes. Sugu said succinctly, "Sell." Bismarck taught Z drivers and U-boats to be merciless, but if Engels was inconvenienced, Kirov would have no problem. She said, "Admiral, don't spoil her." "It doesn't matter." Sugu waved his hand and spoke eloquently, "just take whatever Engels wants to buy. Your admiral has spoken. It doesn't matter if you buy them all. Halva, milk candy, chocolate, wafer biscuits, sandwich biscuits, large sugar, pudding, don't ask me if I can, ask you if you can handle it." Kirov said, "The admiral has become a big capitalist." Engels' eyes were bright, "The admiral is so handsome." At the counter, Xiao Zai asked, "When is a man most handsome?" Tashkent unexpectedly kept up with Xiaozai's rhythm. She looked at Sugu and said, "A man is most handsome when he pays the bills." However, Tashkent was still missing a move. Xiaozai folded his arms and shook his head, "No, no, handsome men are handsome no matter what they do. When paying for bills, when they laugh at themselves, when they work seriously, they press the button decisively and guiltily when putting out fireworks or cooking vegetables, even if you worry about everything, it's still frugal. Ugly people are always wrong no matter what they do." Kirov looked at Sugu and nodded, convinced that as long as he was beautiful and cute, he would have everything. Taking a deep breath, "Why is it that there are so many famous little girls in the guardhouse?" Consultant Xiaozai asked, "Is the admiral handsome?" "Not handsome." Sugu clapped his hands, and then grabbed Xiaozai's cheeks, "I am the admiral. I say he is handsome, and he is handsome even if he is not handsome." The cute face was deformed in Sugu's hands, and Xiaozai succumbed to the lustful power, "The admiral is the most handsome. After shopping for a long time, I returned home in the afternoon." Sugu didn't know how many girls he had gone shopping with, starting from Lexington, Saratoga, Hood, Ruhi. He had already been trained. As a girl, she is naturally passive and goes shopping without consuming energy. However, Xiaozai Geu was lying on the sofa and she was already exhausted. "I don't want to go shopping anymore." Sugu chuckled and said, "It's a small matter. I'm so tired." I feel like I've traveled thousands of miles. Xiao Zai raised her hands and spread her fingers and said that at least she didn't complain about being tired in the middle. It's much more comfortable to blow on the fan, drink cold drinks, and read comics. If you continue like this, you will become busy. If he were a normal person, Sugu would never doubt that Xiaozai would become busy when he grew up. Even at a young age, I have learned to read comics under the quilt with a flashlight. Originally, I just wanted to check how well everyone was covered with quilts, but when I opened the door gently, I saw a ray of light coming out of the quilt. Helena had caught her twice during night rounds. Just change normally, Xiao Zai would have jumped up. She hates people saying that she will become Beizai when she grows up. Although the result is that the more annoying she is, the more others like to talk about it. This time, she unexpectedly didn't refute. After thinking about it, she was still a little unhappy. She explained, "The sun is so bright today, it's too hot." Sugu tugged on his collar and looked at the sky outside the window. Even though it was already afternoon, the sun was still shining brightly. This place is no better than the world he knows well. Even large shopping malls may not have air conditioning. Bismarck suddenly reached out and touched Xiaozai's head. Sister Miao. Xiaozai looked up at Bismarck. Many people like to touch her head, which is annoying, but Bismarck rarely does it. She jumped up and waved her hands, "Chiang Chiang Chiang, now I am fully resurrected where I was." Sugu felt a little defeated and touched Engel's head. However, Engel slapped his hand away and said in disgust, "Don't touch me. I couldn't wait to return to the governor's house." At night, Tashkent was packing clothes. Sugu sat beside me and helped fold them one by one and put them all into the trolley suitcase. I remember that Tashkent sails very fast. Tashkent said, "It's nothing special. Is it faster to dream, or is it faster for you? As an admiral, it is natural for him to understand every ship girl. Sugu did this when he was in the academy. It's just that such a long time has passed, and now I only remember that Tashkent's ship equipment parameters are very good, and its speed is very fast. But I really can't remember who is faster, she or Xianxiang. The impression is that they are both over 40 knots. If it's just a speed comparison, I'm not afraid at all. Of course, it's meaningless." Tashkent looked at Sugu and said, "I just want to fall." Sugu suddenly didn't know what to say. Yes, dreaming of falling is the only difference between falling early and falling. "We must unite and resist tyranny," Engel said while sitting on the sofa, dangling her legs, waiting for Sugu to help her pack her luggage. She had already decided to hold a class strike and demonstration to fight for the power of the destroyer. However, at the critical moment, as a leader, she lost her position and had to leave. She was very unhappy. But when I think about how many destroyers are oppressed in the garrison and must go to bed at 9 o'clock and no later than 10 o'clock every day, and there are as many as a dozen courses, it is obvious that this place needs saving more. Xiaozai heard Engels talk a lot with great interest, and she said, "Sister Helena is the dean of students." "No, it's nothing special," Engels stammered, thinking of Helena's serious face. "And Sister Admiral Hipper," Xiaozai said. Admiral Hipper was nicknamed the Destroyer Killer. Engels hesitated. That's it? The Red Army is not afraid of the difficulties of the expedition, and the vast rivers and mountains are just waiting." Xiaozai said, "No matter how long the road ahead is, there are many monsters and monsters. As long as Comrade Engels leads us, we are not afraid." Engels was infected by Xiaozai, and she said, "Of course. He was both a healing angel and an evil devil." Xiaozai thought that Engels was a bit silly, and he was just another amethyst. He would be useful in the future, and he just needed to make fun of him. Kirov was also packing clothes, but she was different from the two little Lolita. She was only going back to the governor's mansion to stay for a few days, and she would come back again. After all, the handover work is not completed that quickly, and it will take some time. However, The Tutelary mansion is not far away from here at all, so it won't take much time to go back and forth, so it's not a big deal. Is this the Tutelary residence? Right. In August, Sugu took everyone back to the governor's mansion. True to his word, Shugu took the Kirov cannon away from Helena and returned it to Kirov. Tears welled up in Kirov's eyes. After all the suffering, the joy came. Sugu immediately thought of Bumblebee. This girl was so easy to satisfy. Unlike her sister, York City, who is never satisfied and just returns the B-25 to her, the goodwill of the good admiral automatically increases every day, and I guess there will be no problem in giving out rings now. Obviously there is only the right to own it, but no right to dispose of it, and no right to use it. Are you back? I saw Kirov, Tashkent, and Engels. Although it is now a Mazi boat, not a little Mome, Changchun is very happy. She chattered to everyone about herself, where she went and what she did. Now she has become a guided missile destroyer, which is super powerful and can attack beyond visual range. But no matter how outsiders listen, they can only feel that she is showing off. The second day after returning to the tutelage. Kirov, please take some photos for me, but I'm not very photogenic. Ever since he saw Kirov's photography and learned that she had provided covers for many magazines, Sugu was looking forward to it. Compared to a few folk photography enthusiasts in Leipzig, she can be said to be a professional photographer. Although I look so handsome when I look in the mirror, why the photo effect is so poor? It is indeed the photographer's problem. It is definitely not when a person uses the movable viewfinder of his eyes to look at himself in the mirror. A person will automatically process the image he sees according to the environment and mood, and automatically ignore the unsightly parts. To put it simply, looking in the mirror has a self-beautifying effect, which is almost 30% better. Awesome, really awesome. On the third day, Sugu sat on the bench and looked at the photos Kirov brought and couldn't help but praise them. With the endless glow and the standing lighthouse as the background, I stood upright and looked into the distance. The lines of my profile were so strong, handsome, and profound. Not subjectively, objectively speaking, it can definitely be used as a magazine cover. Awesome. Of course Saratoga joined in the fun. She saw a photo of herself and her brother-in-law hugging each other while standing under the shade of a tree. She felt that as long as she added a title, it could be used as a promotional poster for an idol movie. Leipzig, you guys are weaklings, Sugu accused him unceremoniously. Leipzig, Emerald, and Jinjin like to take pictures. Someone caused trouble. They watched Kirov taking pictures of Sugu. Naturally, they wouldn't miss it when the results came out. They looked at the photos and curled their lips. We take ID photos, not art photos. We also have art photos. Leipzig ran off and came back a few moments later with a stack of photos. So Sugu saw it. He was sitting on a bench, surrounded by many little Lolita, cuddling, leaning on, and there was no problem at all with the title of King Yong and his harem of Lolita. There is also a photo. On Children's Day, in order to take a super cool photo of my little Lolita, I tried to find a good angle and lay down on the grass. It was really unsightly. It corresponds to such a poem: you are watching the scenery on the bridge, and the people watching the scenery are watching you upstairs. The bright moon decorates your windows, and you decorate other people's dreams. Sugu hit Leipzig on the head with his fist. Remind you, you are in the first year of junior high school, don't blame me for being in the 15th year. The salary has been agreed upon, but it hasn't been paid yet. Just do 15, I'm not afraid. Sugu said. The kitchen goddess and Falcon went to the warehouse. I thought you had nothing to do, so I transferred you to work as cashier, accountant, and finance. It seems that I can forget it. Even though she knew that Sugu's words were false, Leipzig, as a money lover, was unwilling to give up hope. She hugged Sugu's hand and whispered, "Admiral." Kirov stayed in the governor's mansion for 3 days and left, but returned to the governor's mansion every few days to stay for 1 day. It gradually reached mid-August.